get off your ass and on your feet, or stay on your ass if you want to. I don't care. It is a draft edition of the Sports Court. I'm Eddie Cox, a.k.a. Eddie Kane. I'm alongside Greg Beatty, my man here. We're a little late to the party, but we're always on time, if you know what I mean, because in the sports world, you're always on time. Everything's clicking, everything's happening, shaking and moving. It is a fluid situation. We're having trades go down before we even have anybody on the clock. Of course, we know the Jaguars are officially on the clock, but there's still some shaking and moving. There's a word out that maybe the Eagles are trying to move up with their 2 first-round picks that they have. So there's a lot of stuff that can shake out in the draft. NBA playoffs, a lot of stories going on in the NBA. Some of the preseason championship favorites, season's over. They're sitting on the sidelines, swept in fact. That's Kevin Durant, lackluster performance against the Celtics as they are one and done in the playoffs. I know Greg has a lot of comments and a lot of takes on that, as well as what looked like a sure thing for Philly. All of a sudden, Toronto sees themselves climbing back into that series slowly but surely. If you made one of them long shot bets whenever the Raptors were down 3-0, just say, hey, I'm going to blow $100 here and maybe I can make 5,000. That was a bet that was on the board that some of the savvy bettors took a chance on. And hey, right now from where it's sitting, that looks like that's a possibility as well. As well as the Suns struggling a little bit too without Devin Booker. It's been a real issue for them on offense. Chris Paul has not been able to score the basketball the way the Suns need him to without Booker, and that is a problem. But Greg, first we're going to start in Major League Baseball and the Astros. This is Astros news because it pertains to the New York Yankees and a letter that's been sealed by Major League Baseball for years. And it's proven what we've all known along. The Astros were scapegoated by Major League Baseball. The Yankees employing similar cheating tactics, not only in 2017, but in 2015 and in 2016, long prior before the Astros were, which lines up with the Astros' take and story, like their side of the story on this, that, hey, they were just trying to keep up with what everybody else was doing in baseball. Greg, your take, first knowledge or first time hearing that this letter is out. The Yankees are in fact, just like the Astros, cheaters. I don't know about the eyes of Major League Baseball, but certainly in the eyes of people here in Houston, and certainly in the eyes of the sports court.
Well, I'll tell you this. I mean, if you think about it, it was never any doubt in our minds anyway when we talked about it a couple of years ago, as a matter of fact. A few years ago we talked about it, and we spoke on the fact that, hey, it's like this. It's the New York Yankees. If it's the New York Yankees or the Los Angeles Dodgers or the Boston Red Sox, in those big-time media markets like that, more than likely they're going to get the benefit of the doubt. And, of course, MLB does not want to. That's why it's surprising that they're actually putting this letter information out right now. And
they didn't want to. They fought it tooth and nail. This
did
is a federal judge making the decision. Not Major League Baseball, because if it was up to Major League Baseball, Greg, you know this would not come out. They were trying to hold it as close to the best as they could.
Well, that's what we were talking about, Eddie. That's what we were talking about a couple of years ago. The simple fact that it is the New York Yankees, and that is the cash cow. You know, like we always talk about. It's all about that money at the end of the day. Make no mistake about it. And the Dodgers, the same thing with the Dodgers. So, of course, Major League Baseball, Eddie, they do not want that black eye with the team that they covet most, or the team that they know that they generate the most money from, and that's the New York Yankees. And they wouldn't want the same thing with the Boston Red Sox or the Los Angeles Dodgers. The Houston Astros, of course, let's put everything on the Houston Astros because we don't think nobody else is doing this. All those guys were trying to get an edge, and I'm glad that that information came out about the New York Yankees.
Without a doubt, and like you're alluding to here when you mentioned, we're talking about franchises with a long history of Major League Baseball, what I would call one of their elite franchises when you talk about the Red Sox and the Yankees. And clearly the Astros were never part of that and are still not a part of that. Major League Baseball has, been complicit in doing. I'm not gonna say the Astros didn't do themselves any favors by getting caught cheating.
Absolutely. But
it seems like Major League Baseball, because the Astros are out of Houston, they aren't out of a major market. Like the Yankees, like the Red Sox, they would rather hold back the legacy of this team, just based on being
just to control the narrative, so nobody else looks like that they're doing anything like this. It's only the Houston Astros.
Well, no, just
knowing damn well they know the New York Yankees.
And clearly, but based on it being Houston, I mean, and look, let's from a guy who lives here and who has lived here pretty much my whole life. It's real easy for the national media to point and laugh at Houston. I mean, time and time again, going all the way back. Go back to 1992 with the Houston Oilers, whenever they had the largest comeback in playoff history. And then now you have when they do.
I still owe Joey Galloway $20.
Or you could look
JT, what
you could look at the NBA championships with Hakeem Olajuwon. How some will still say they are a little bit tainted because of the status of Michael Jordan's career at the time of those championships. It's always been a real easy for Houston to be isolated and singled out. And this was a great opportunity for Major League Baseball, at least they thought, for them to, ostracize the Astros, and everybody would go along with it because it's real easy to do that, with the national media and with other fan bases, while concealing the fact that it wasn't only the Astros that were, partaking in this type of behavior and in these tactics. In fact, it was all of baseball's elite franchises, and the Astros were just better at it than all of them, and that really ticked them off. Let's be real, that's probably what it is, that the Astros were just the best at stealing signs in Major League Baseball, and that's why.
Definitely.
And that's why everybody else is pissed off.
And definitely not here to make any excuses for the Houston Astros. They were held accountable, and they held themselves accountable in the complicity of what they did. And of course, they won the World Series. But if you notice one thing, and again, this is breaking news to me, Eddie, right here. But it's not surprising, of course. Again, what it comes down to is the money, and it's the New York Yankees. And again, if it was the Los Angeles Dodgers or whatever, they would definitely try to conceal that as much as possible because they don't want that tank. They do not want to tank MLB like that. So if the Houston Astros could get caught cheating, and they can take the brunt of it for everybody else, and hopefully that would control the narrative and keep everybody else at bay about some of these other teams, knowing, just like the steroid era, knowing that, hey, it's cheating involved right there. Hey, that's what it is. And if you ever notice, to your point about Houston teams, one thing I will say, if the Houston Oilers wouldn't have blown that game in 1992, that probably would have changed some things right there. But when you blow games like that, not only 1992, Eddie, but then when they lost the game to Denver, I think maybe the year before that, John Elway, and they come back, but year after year, blowing chances to get to the Super Bowl with those great teams that you had right there, the national media is going to start looking at you as a joke. And obviously, it's unfortunate for the Houston Rockets that Hakeem Olajuwon, because as great as Jordan was, real quick, I missed Marv Albert. Jordan down the lane. Oh my! What a finish, Michael Jordan. But hey, when Jordan left, and Hakeem and those guys won those two championships, I think Hakeem was that great that he was just going to get one of those championships anyway. At least one out of those two. But hey, Jordan wasn't there, so that tanks theirs to some degree. Not to us, of course, because I used to shut down the party. They know, my boys know at Ohio State. That first championship, I was still there in '94 when they broke in with that OJ ride, unfortunately, and we were over there kicking it that night. But we watched that whole series, and I was shutting it down, talking noise about Houston. But again, Michael Jordan wasn't there. But as far as the New York Yankees and teams like that, that's going to bring that national exposure, going to bring that moolah, that money, a team with that kind of pedigree. I mean, the Houston Astros, as far as New York Yankees and the New York Yankees fans are concerned, the Houston Astros, they're peons, So it's up to the Astros to continue to win, which they haven't been doing at a high rate this far. So we've just keep knocking them across the head.
We've seen this before. I mean, the Astros don't always start off hot. They've got some new positions, some new players they're working in, and they're certainly working through some injuries right now in the pitching staff, in the bullpen, and in their starting lineup. With Jose Altuve being down, and Kyle Tucker's not hitting well right now. So they've struggled, but I'm not worried about the Astros.
No, me either.
But the letter, I think a lot of Astros fans were hoping that the letter might sway some people. But the reality of it is that
watch how it flies under the radar.
The masses were never going to be swayed by this. They've already made up their mind. The Houston Astros are going to be the only cheaters in Major League Baseball. And you know what? That's just fine, because the Astros are going to keep coming back. They're going to keep winning. and
I
keep
appreciate
doing
you
things the
bringing
right way. And if baseball evolves into another situation where something is happening and it's becoming illegal, whether it be the spider tag issue we saw, and Garrett Cole really hasn't been himself since. Let's talk about that.
No,
He
Garrett
hasn't been
Cole, he
himself
has
since
not
the
been
spider
himself.
tag has gone away.
Yeah.
But as it evolves, you can expect the Astros to keep evolving right there with it. Hey, if you're not trying to better your competition one way or another, then you're not competing. And baseball has always been a game of who can come up with the better tactics and who can try to get an edge, one that maybe is a gray area or that isn't written in the rules. And we're constantly seeing things happen in Major League Baseball where the game is evolving. Mm-hmm. And then also now, home runs are down this year a little bit. Supposedly the baseball's being put in humidors, making them harder to hit out of the ballpark. There's a lot of stuff going on with Major League Baseball that I think revolves around Rob Manfred, and why I think he has no business being the commissioner of Major League Baseball. But if you were hoping that this letter would somehow change the way people feel about the Astros fans, the vitriol that's out there for the Astros, it isn't going anywhere. It's going to stay right there. We're just going to have to learn to love to be, a fan base that is a heel, so to speak, as a whole, but doesn't lower themselves to the standards and do the things that other fan bases, like the Yankees, who find themselves in the news again this week with a familiar face, Miles Straw. We don't want to be that type of fan base. We just want to keep coming, supporting our Astros, and hopefully helping them bring success not only to the baseball team but to the entire city.
Well, hey, you know what? I concur, and those are some nice words spoken by you. And I'll just say this again. It's not surprising. Now watch how this flies under the radar about the Yankees. I mean, it doesn't matter to me because at the end of the day, the Astros on the field, they have to win games and they have to take care of their business this year. They have the talent to do so. So we'll see what happens if they get the pitching back in order. And as far as the Yankees have talent over there, so they're expected to win as well. But that incident, okay, so that information just came out today. It'll probably be mentioned for maybe a couple of days on the major sportscasts and all this and that. And if that, and then it's going to disappear into the night, and you will not hear any word about the Yankees and their cheating back in those years that you talked of. But it's not surprising one bit. But again, if some of those Houston teams in the past, like as far as the orders are concerned, maybe the perception would not be as it is about these Houston teams right now. Yeah, I mean, you look at. Well, we'll talk basketball here in a second. We'll talk what you want to talk about the draft as far as the Texans, as far as that's concerned. But hey, that's some breaking news. I appreciate you breaking that news right there. And of course, as far as other things, it's not too much really in baseball to really talk about right now. I mean, I know what I've always been high on Vlad Guerrero Jr. and the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm gonna tell you right now, Vlad Guerrero Jr. He looks like he's probably the best hitter in baseball. He's going to be fighting for a triple crown again this year. Of course, Mike Trout, when he's healthy, he's still, the last 11 games, I think he's batting over 300, 11 RBIs, 6 homers, something. But he's, over the last 11 games, he's caught his groove. Now, the Angels will see, being in the Astros division, we will see if they can live up to some of that talent with Rendon and Ohtani, of course. And, of course, I want to see Mike Trout actually get into the playoffs, but not at the expense of the Astros. So, there's so much going on. Now, of course, y'all know that I'm a Bryce Harper fan. The Phillies have gotten off to a slow start. I'll tell you right now, Joe Girardi better be careful, because those fans in Philly are not going to put up with that for too much longer with all that talent that they have on the offensive side of the ball. You can't go out there putting up not getting any runs, two games in a row, or maybe 3 runs in 2 games. With that talent and that lineup that you have around Bryce Harper now, I know it's early, and I think they're going to eventually catch their groove. But he has to be careful, because they'll run him out of Philly quick if he's not living up to the standards. Now, of course, the pitching, they need some relief pitching, of course. But so you never know what's going to go on. They have some good frontline pitching, but they're kind of inconsistent. So I tell you, but again, Joe Girardi better be careful. But the Toronto Blue Jays and that division with the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Rays, that division right there is a monster right there. And so those are some teams that's going to. Now, we can say what we will about the Yankees or whatever, but we know they're a very talented team, so they're definitely going to be in the mix this season to do some things over there. And of course, the Dodgers sitting at 12-4, they're over there doing their thing with all that talent. Think about what they're doing and the talent that they have. Kershaw, who got pulled from the no-hitter not long ago, was on his way to a perfect game, which I really understand where the Dodgers was coming from with that. If you look at a guy his age this early in the season, and it's a no-win situation. I mean, if he pitches the rest of that game and something happens to his shoulder, and you're not looking at the long term as far as what's mostly important is winning another World Series. I don't think Kershaw really cares too much right now about that no-hitter. I think he'll rather be healthy in the long run. So I think the Dodgers did that right. And of course, who else? I mean, again, it's still young in the season. The Astros with that talent, Eddie. Before we move on, you listen to the Sports Court. I'm Gregory Beatty. That's Eddie Cox. The show where we keep it 100% of the time. But it's going to be a long baseball season. There's some talent. You look at the Mets with Francisco Lindor now, Eddie. He started. We're talking about the Yankees. The Mets are leading that division over there with the Phillies. Of course, the Braves, once they get Acuna Jr. back, who's one of the top 3 to 5 players in baseball when he's healthy coming off that ACL. So they're going to be right there in the mix, even though they don't have Freddie Freeman, but they picked up Matt Olson. So once they get Acuna Jr. back, the Braves are going to be right there in the mix as well. So the Padres, of course, when they get Tatis Jr. back. But again, it's just some the Mets with Francisco Lindor, like I was talking about. He looks like now he's fitting into what the Mets are trying to do, Eddie. I mean, of course, they picked up Scherzer, and of course, you still know you have, some other people that can get it done. Of course, a great pitching staff. But they picked up Scherzer, Francisco Lindor. I mean, now he seems like, because sometimes, Eddie, when you're a big time free agent like that, of course, we're going to talk a lot of draft, a lot of NBA. So stay tuned for that. Turn off that game. You can put that on record or whatever. You can watch that later. You listen to the Sports Court. But hey, man, I mean, Francisco Lindor and the Mets right now, they seem like a team that's going to be in the mix this season. Sometimes it takes a while when you get to a big city like that and you're expected to do the things that you're expected to do with the contract that you received last year. Sometimes it just takes you a while. You go in, you're trying to do too much. You want to be the savior of that team. Now I think he's had time to go to go through in the off season, sit back, really get acclimated to the city, coming from the Cleveland Guardians. I still can't get used to it. He came from the Indians, didn't he? Still can't get used to calling them the Guardians. Every time I see that, I'm thinking it's some soccer team they're showing or whatever. But I like what Francisco Lindor is doing along with the Mets themselves. So speaking of New York teams, I mean, they should be in the mix this year, but I'm really looking forward to seeing how baseball season, how it plays out. But it's a long season, so not going to spend too much more time on that. Trust me, we're going to talk about everything we're ready to talk about.
About 33 games in 34 days, they're going to be playing a lot of baseball. They're going to a 6-man rotation. Jake Odorizzi has struggled, but Christian Javier is going to come in behind him and be that 6-man in the rotation, and we'll see how that goes. Maybe even Odorizzi if Odorizzi doesn't get it done. This is Odorizzi struggling. Last year. What's that?
How long is McCullers going to be out with that elbow? That's right. That's concerning right there, man.
He's on the 60-day DL. I don't know how close he is.
He already has a torn
setback. Yeah,
that's it's not good for that.
At this point, with McCullers, I'm just to the point where get him good, by end of summer.
I got you.
I want him ready to go
rest
for the second half of the season.
Let him rest.
Into the fall. That's where it's really going to matter. That's where he can really help the Astros.
There it is. Now before we move to some NBA, then we're going to talk some college. And of course, after the draft this upcoming Thursday, we're going to really break down the draft and where these teams go with their draft picks. Of course, right now it's still speculation. Nothing that we haven't too much talked about already about where some of these people may go, where some of the receivers, where a couple of receivers from Ohio State may go, of course, who the Texans may pick, but we can still rehash some of that before we go as well. But Eddie, real quick, before we get into the Nets getting swept, hey man, I'm coming from work, bro, and this road, McCarr Road now, that in the area that I grew up in right now, man, I mean, it's nothing but roadkill all up and down the road. When I leave work, I'm thinking, okay, maybe I go get me a burrito or something, a breakfast burrito or something like that or whatever. Hey man, I tell you this, they need to put some lights up on that street, McCarr Road 2034 in Moses. They need to put some lights up on that street right behind Willow Ridge, the school I went to in high school, or something, because Everything is good. Hey, that needs to be called Slaughter Road, really. I mean, I'm literally about to stop eating meat, man. Every time I come down that road in the morning, or the times I do go down that road, I don't go down every morning. But I'm talking about Eddie. I promise you, bro, every like maybe 20 yards, there's some guts here, or something killed here, or a dog killed here, or a raccoon killed here, or I'm like, bro, all the way up and down the damn street, nothing but roadkill, man. I'm like, damn, you trying to spoil my appetite like that? But hey, man, it is nasty, man. I'm talking about you're literally driving and swerving. I hope somebody else can contest to this that's really paying attention. But you're really driving and swerving, trying to avoid, you know, it's just so much roadkill in the road, man. They need to clean that damn street up. Or put some lights out there.
You make it sound
I'm about to become a vegetarian.
It's funny, but what it is on a road like that, first off, you're not getting any lights out there.
I know.
It ain't gonna happen. But
I was at the
people
one
are
time,
looking down at their phone. They assume because there aren't any cars around, they don't have to watch out for anything. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, here comes an armadillo, a possum, or even a deer, man.
Yeah. What? Deers?
That's just part of living in Texas.
I seen a deer not too long ago over there. A deer, actually, yeah, man. So that's exactly what's going on over there, man. But I'm gonna tell you, hey, they're about to make me become a vegetarian. I did it. I did that vegetarian thing one time for like 3 months, man. And then I was just sitting there one day, I was doing all good. I've been eating vegetables all that morning and fruit, and worked out and all this and that. Then just something hit me. I was like, damn, I got a taste for a burger. And it's been on ever since. But hey, I keep saying all that roadkill. It's definitely going to be some vegetarian, which I'm trying to get away from all that.
Why don't you get out of the car and shovel some of that stuff to the side of the road?
I'm doing like this.
And do your community.
I'm like, bro, hey, bro. Life ain't that good, I'm telling you.
Hey,
but
if it's fresh,
I can put it in the call. I
can
put it in the call. Hey, but I know you being an animal lover though. You would do something like that, man.
I mean, I do everything I can not to hit them. Sometimes to my own detriment. I mean, I try to watch out for animals. One time, I mean, I run smooth over a deer in a Jeep. You know, I live off of NASA Road 1, and on NASA, they're known for having a lot of deer out there in their open fields they have out there. Sometimes they get out into the highway and get across NASA Road 1. I never saw him. They're moving so fast. Comes jumping. He was right in front of. I never saw him. Went right over him. Boom, boom. And I mean, that's good thing I wasn't in the Corolla, because if I was, I might have had that deer in my lap.
Yeah. Might have been Rap City right there.
Good thing. We made it down to Cabo. Made it to the bar we were going to.
Hey, that's good, man. That's good. Y'all made it to where y'all were going, and good y'all made it coming back from the bar.
Oh yeah,
that's most important right
still
there.
Here.
I'm sure you had a designated driver, huh?
Of course.
There you go. Hey, but the Sports Court, Eddie Cox. I'm Gregory Beatty. Grade A Media, Grade A Radio. Skrilla is in the building, of course. Man, what's this real quick before we get to the hoops? What's this about Mike Tyson, Eddie? And my boy taking a swing on somebody on the airplane?
Hey man, everybody knows Mike still has it. That's all I was thinking about.
At 55, man, you don't mess with Mike, man.
I was thinking about that scene in The Hangover where he knocks out Zach Galifianakis with a nasty hook with the Phil Collins playing in the background. Hey, have you seen that movie?
I haven't.
You haven't seen The Hangover?
Oh, The Hangover, yeah.
Where he knocks out.
Yeah, well, Mike Tyson's in that movie,
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't see it in its entirety, but I know it's a classic movie. Go ahead.
It's great, but I mean, that's all I could picture was, Phil Collins playing in the background while Mike wails on this guy. But
and that's in the movie.
Mike's defense,
Mike will do it in real life.
This was a guy who was probably a little bit drunk, probably a little bit belligerent. Mike took a picture with the guy,
Okay.
He wasn't like Mike was just being a snob or anything like that. He took a picture with the guy, and the guy continuously wanted to mess with Mike.
Trying to get on the news.
Act like he was his buddy,
Trying to get on the news.
Keep talking in his
Yeah,
ear
right.
while he's trying to relax on the flight. And
Annoying.
the next thing you know, Mike goes Mike. And,
Yes.
Hey. There's
gotta make sure your brain has all spinal. Gotta make sure your spinal activity loses all connection. Hey man, Mike will go off, man.
Hey,
all optimum ability.
Real quick, if you want to talk about somebody who at one point in their career, like, they could have become one of the most hated athletes in America, facing some of the charges that he was facing, and to come back from all that, and to still to this day come back from the biting of the year and everything, and to still to this day be one of the most beloved athletes, and one of the most favorite people, one of the most famous people. I mean, to me,
Let's
Tyson's
put your
still
brain up in your nose.
He's still an A-lister, if you ask
Tyson
me.
a
Like
fool,
he's not one of those guys that's just hanging around and staying
Put your nose up
relevant,
in your brain.
doing whatever they can to stay relevant. Mike Tyson is a legitimate celebrity. People love the guy, and I think he's come a long way. To bounce back. As far as a redemption story, long term.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I be telling somebody, he's like, I'm gonna push your nose up in your brain. He be saying some stuff, man. Mike, hey, but one thing I will say about Mike Tyson, and he still is one of the most beloved figures right now, and he's doing some nice things. I like the way he's resurrected his career as well. But you remember Eddie Murphy in that stand-up comedy, he's like, hey man, his girl, Mike Tyson touched his girl ass. He's like, hey, go say something to Mike Tyson. Go something. Go tell him. You go to. He said, hey, Mike, man, don't worry about it, Mike. Man, she tripping, man. She tripping. Leave Mike Tyson alone. But if you listen to Mike Tyson, man, one thing I've always known about Mike Tyson, of course, you listen to the Sports Court, and we're going to talk a lot of NBA, so stay tuned. I know the game's on right now. Turn them off. Or turn them on pause, you know what I mean, or turn them down or whatever. But one thing about Mike Tyson I've always noticed, and going back into his younger years as well, Mike Tyson is a very intelligent person. Now, of course, he's had some mental instability and the way he grew up and some things that he's admitted to that affected his childhood and things of that sort. That's well documented. But if you really listen to Mike Tyson in interviews, and ever since he was a youngster, I've always hung on to every word. It's just some people you hang on to that every word. And Mike Tyson, if you really listen to him, he may articulate it a different way than someone else, or he finds his own way to get to the point he's trying to convey, but it's always very interesting and very compelling. And no matter what you think about Mike Tyson, he's a very, very intelligent guy. And of course, you do not want to get on this bad side where he can push your nose up through your brain or eat your kids for dinner and all this kind of crazy stuff like he talks about. But Eddie, man.
Yeah, don't steal his tiger.
Don't steal his tiger, for real. For real. How do you even, you got, hey man, how do you even own a real tiger like that? I mean, now I'm a guy, when I was a kid, I was known as a daredevil. I was a daredevil. Yeah. Hey man, when I was youngster, anybody that can contest, I was a daredevil. I mean, I'd take boxing gloves up the street, ready to box anybody, or whether won or lost or whatever, but get on the highest diving board, get on the Texas Cyclone. I mean, a daredevil. As I've gotten older, bro, I don't even like being on the third level or something, you know what I'm saying? But I mean, that's craziness, man. It's craziness. So hopefully Tyson is chilling, and that guy's chilling, and it's, hey man.
Yeah, I saw pictures of this guy. He's all right. Mike took it easy on him, so Mike will bounce back. He'll be good. And
but a tiger, how do you own a tiger, bro? When it get full, woo, man.
Like I said, the only thing I know about tigers is from when I watched The Tiger King. Did you watch that?
Yeah.
That's all I know about tigers.
He'll slap him all in the face. I'm like, bro, this dude ain't playing with foot.
Deadly animals,
man.
Nonetheless.
And they have to have those teeth so they can. Hey. To each his own. But he actually got away with owning them, and if it was meant to be, it was meant to be. If he was gonna get mauled, and he didn't. So hopefully he learns. Don't own any more tigers, though. Hey man, but what's up with the Nets? I know the games are on right now. You got who you got on right now? The Heat, and you got the Miami Heat playing the Hawks right now. I'm sure they're trying to finish that series off, of course. And the Miami Heat, Eddie. But let's talk about the Brooklyn Nets. Now, remember when I was ranting, I said they're not going to do jack, blah, blah, blah. Now, I didn't think they were going to get swept. I mean, of course, I was banging it, too, on the fact that at that time, they hadn't passed a mandate where Kyrie could get, where he could play in all the games. But, of course, James Harden was still there when I said that. But what I was banking on more so than anything is what we've always talked about, Eddie. They're not going to have that chemistry anyway. And go ahead, man. I mean, I got some stuff to say about this, but they got swept by the Boston Celtics. A Boston Celtics team is a team that you have to really look out for. Between them and Milwaukee, the Miami Heat, I mean, the East is loaded right now. But the Celtics are for real. And I told you, when you don't have your full complement of players like that, then you have Ben Simmons, who leaves Philadelphia because he's scared to shoot a layup, and he gets all in his feelings because the media gets on him, and I don't want to play with Philly anymore. Then he goes to Brooklyn, and all of a sudden he's dealing with this and dealing with that. And again, if he's really mentally unstable, I wish him well. But it's just some things that are not adding up. And what did I say a few weeks ago? He may just be damaged goods, for all we know. As far as the back, if that back is really an issue, he may just be damaged goods. But when you don't have that continuity like that, you want to play iso ball, and you're going against a team. What did I say last week? Everybody talking about Kyrie scored 39. Kyrie scored 39 in a game that they lost. And I say, man, he's playing against Marcus Smart, the defensive player of the year. Marcus Smart is a dog. And you see Marcus Smart the rest of that series. I think they noticed, and I don't think the media did the Brooklyn Nets any favors after they lost that first game, that game one. But all you heard about was what Kyrie did and what they were going to do moving forward, because Kyrie is this special as an offensive player, and then you add KD in there. What did I say? They're never clicking at the same time. They still never have clicked at the same time. But you have Marcus Smart and that great defense. Now you have Robert Williams back. Hey, man, Boston smelled blood. They didn't fear Brooklyn whatsoever. What have I always said about even early in the season, as great as Kyrie is, he's a 6-foot point guard, and he's not overly athletic. And I'm hip y'all with something else too, real quick. Kyrie has bad knees. Trust me, Kyrie has bad knees. And when you have a team that has some wing players that's grimy and that's athletic, they can handle Kyrie. And either he's going to make a lot of shots, or he's not going to shoot a high percentage. Great player. I'm not trying to pile on him while he's down and all this and that. These are things that I've said already in the past. Not a guy that you're probably going to, of course, LeBron was able to win with him. But KD had a situation, Eddie. KD had a situation, and they stymied KD the whole series as well. Being physical, things of that sort. So when you're playing iso ball, you're just not going to beat a team like Boston, who also, if you notice KD, and when you don't have a guy like Steph, as great as KD is, Kyrie, with a team like that, especially you don't have the other surrounding pieces around them that can spread the floor. Now you're really going to be able to load up on Kevin Durant, and KD wasn't ready for that physicality. And again, as great as KD is, he's 33 years old right now, and a 6-foot point guard that's not overly athletic, but he's very crafty, very talented. He's not a high wire act. He's not a Derrick Rose when Derrick Rose is healthy. He's just not that super explosive. He's not an AI. So you can contain him to a degree and curtail whatever he's trying to throw at you, as long as you're being grimy and gritty on the defense side of the ball. And that's what the Boston Celtics did, man, from game one. And they said, no, we don't want a gentleman's sweep, which is 4 games to 1. We want to sweep you guys.
And really, if you watch that game at the end, Brooklyn, after falling down early, they had a real opportunity to win that game at the end. Kevin Durant's up at the free throw line, misses the free throw that would have made it a 2-point game. You foul, or a 1-point game. You foul, and then you get an opportunity to shoot a 3 if they make both free throws and tie the game up. And you felt like the momentum was right there with Brooklyn. But then, just like this entire series, for whatever reason, KD came up flat in a big moment, and man, I just kept thinking, it just seemed like the mighty KD had fallen really, really far.
I'm not gonna go there.
The Nets, and the Nets as well
have
fallen. Look, here's one thing about Kevin Durant. And it was real.
The Nets didn't have a good team.
It was real easy for him to be a cold-blooded sniper whenever he was a part of the Warriors, and he didn't have to shoulder any of the leadership. He didn't have to shoulder any of the blame.
Well, you had Steph and those guys taking some pressure off from him because he had more room to operate too.
Absolutely.
But he was the best player on that team, though.
He may have been the best player on that team, but let's face it, he was not the face of that team, and he was not the the sole heart and soul leader of that team. That was Steph Curry, no doubt about it.
And Draymond.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they all played their role, but when you talk about the Warriors, it starts and ends with Steph Curry.
Absolutely.
And now KD's come to Brooklyn, and there's just been little moments where KD has let, maybe, I don't know if maybe it's not the moment, but just what's going on with his team, he's let that affect his production on the court. And it's shown it's shown big time, I should say, in this series. And, it was starting to show near the end of the season, and even as this series got started, you see KD lashing out at fans who are, I don't know if you saw the video, where somebody said, KD, you need to take over this game. And KD said, you need to sit down and shut the F up. And I'm thinking...
He's kind of sensitive.
But that's exactly what I'm saying. A guy that's sensitive like him, he can't have too many of these moments. You know, he's got to
be like Kobe, man.
A cold-blooded killer.
Yes,
and then we will overlook these, you know, these signs of, I don't know, bitchiness. Like, I mean, I don't know what to call it.
No, you said it right. You said it right.
Durant, you know,
I think he lashes out way too much through a tweet or something like, bro, just, you know.
I felt like he came up, you know, small, and give credit. He was young in the NCAA tournament. He had an opportunity to really shine there, and he didn't. And, you know, in the NBA, you know, when he finally joins the Warriors, he really took, you know, he took his game to a championship level, and it showed. But I'm not so sure, like, I'm gonna just buy, you know, Kevin Durant. I know. I hear this. Hold on a second. Let me finish. Oh, we always kind of thought or considered him, you know, the second best player in the NBA, right there with LeBron James. So I mean, he's gone down a couple notches to me, because I always felt, and I used to feel, that you could take Kevin Durant, you could plug him in on any team in the NBA, and instantly that team's a contender. And I mean, not if they're in shambles, but you know what I mean. You put them on a legitimate team that's close, maybe a fringe playoff team, and Kevin Durant will be able to take that team to the next level. And now I'm seeing that is not the case.
Well, you know what, too? And again, like I said, he's 33 years old. He played against a juggernaut in the Boston Celtics, and it just so happened, I mean, he played against them in the first round. And a lot of that is on him too as well. Again, when you're not playing with the Warriors, when you have things spread out, and thing about it is too, when you have somebody like Russell Westbrook, right? And you have Russell Westbrook, you pretty much chose the same player in Kyrie Irving, because an offensive-minded point guard who looks for a shot first. And so you tried 9 years. You tried 9 years with Russell Westbrook, and that didn't work out. So, in my opinion, if you're really looking to team up with somebody and really try to go get that championship outside of being in Golden State, because it's like, hey, you know, I don't want to just make it look like, okay, I only won because I was in Golden State. I think he made the wrong choice. You probably should have looked at somebody like Kawhi Leonard, and, you know, in that regard, and even though Kawhi got hurt, but you probably looked, I mean, you should have. Kyrie wasn't the guy, in my opinion, because he's never made his teammates better. The team that beat them yesterday was a team that he played for last year, who doesn't like him, of course, in the Boston Celtics. And he just ran up against KD, just ran up against a team that was so physical. And he can use a better coach. I don't think Steve Nash is the right coach for this team. Steve Nash did not do them any favors. Did you see last night, one of the players, I think it was Seth Curry, he had, I think it was at some point, maybe in the third quarter, he had like, I think 4 fouls or something to that degree. And he checked himself out the game before, you know, at an important time, because Steve Nash did not have the wherewithal to do that at that situation. So he checked himself out the game, you know, trying to be smart. And it's things like that Steve Nash, he has to learn as a head coach. He has to get better at. And I don't think he did KD any favors as well. And of course, they didn't have a team around them. But see, that's what happens. And then Kyrie, he gets up there in the press conference and he talks about how, well, you know, we're gonna, me and the family. Man, what family? Don't even say the word family, because obviously you spurned your family, and that's why you all in the situation you're all now. Don't try to, like I told you before, he's gonna try to downplay it. He's gonna try to say something to keep the media at bay. He's gonna try to say something that he thinks is compelling, but nobody's falling for it this time. Kyrie, the reason you all were in this situation, and one of the main reasons you all got swept, for one, you ran up against the Celtics, and the thing about it, you had 2 offensive players on your team, but the difference was they were bringing the defense, but hey, also they have 2 superstars on the offensive side of the ball. And I think that's kind of what played a part in Kevin Durant and Kyrie's psyche as well. What did I say last week? I said, man, that's Marcus Smart out there. Things are not going to get any easier for Kyrie Irving. But the thing about it is, they had to play with this psyche. Okay, we have to play some defense too. And so you look what Jason Tatum did to Kevin Durant. He matched up with him, showed that fight, showed that intensity, showed that he was a superstar as well. So now you have Kevin Durant's psyche, when he's not only on the offensive side of the ball, some of his psyche is saying, hey, even if I score right here, I know I have to go back and play some defense. So it just throws the whole rhythm of his game off. He didn't have any time to relax. It was very physical. And again, you make a basket, Jason Tatum comes down like, okay, I can do that too. And then Jaylen Brown. And they're using ball movement. They're actually playing as a team. And so that's it right there, man. I mean,
it's simple, Greg. The Celtics have, a whole lot of what the Nets do not have. And when you talk about what teams do and how they take on, their personality, their identity, a lot of it has to do with the best players on the team.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a little bit of softness that is rubbed off on this entire Nets team from the top down, from Kevin Durant, some weirdness from Kyrie Irving, some carelessness and I don't know what you call it, lack of it from Ben Simmons, who doesn't even want to be a part of the team apparently. There's so much stuff going on. You get so many different personalities that in the end, the identity of the Nets is something soft. Mm-hmm. And you look at the Celtics, this is a team where every player up and down that roster, they have grit.
Mm-hmm.
They know that's one thing that Kevin Durant, I'm sorry, I cannot say KD has grit.
Yeah.
But when he's having his worst game, he can dig down deep and claw a 35-point gutsy performance out of nowhere,
Well, if you think about it,
like a Michael Jordan could, or like a Larry Bird could. And
like Jordan did in that game. Speaking of the Celtics, man, that's my point, yeah. And I'll never forget, speaking of the Celtics, when Michael Jordan, his second year when he came back from that broken foot, against the legendary Celtics team with Larry Bird, Dennis Johnson, McHale, Robert Pat. He was 60, and that's when I said, oh yeah, even though I already knew who he was, but that type of performance, and he was one-man show against a great 16. But of course, it's changed, and it was more physical even back then. But to your point about KD, man, 33 years old now. Again, so much to think on both sides of the ball because he has some more superstars over there, and Jason Tatum, who is a superstar, who's doing it on both sides of the ball. And it's like, okay, you get yours, I'm gonna get mine. I'm gonna stop you from getting yours more times than not. But they just kept attacking, man. And that starts with the coach, Ime Udoka. He's done a great job of making that team find this chemistry at the right time, utilizing their talent. Everybody is buying in to team basketball, and they're all in it for one common goal, and that's to win the world championship. So they seem like a viable contender for sure, but they just took the Nets out of their game. They took the Nets' heart from them, and they swept them. They didn't even give them a chance to get one game. They did not take their foot off the gas whatsoever. And I'm telling you right now, I said it a few weeks ago, the only reason why I came in a couple weeks after that and kind of tried to walk it back to agree, that was Kevin Durant. My respect for Kevin Durant and the possibility. They're talking about Ben Simmons may come back. I'm like, okay, well, if you get Ben Simmons back, we can say what we want about Ben Simmons. He is the former #1 pick from LSU, and of course he's going to be an asset to them, especially if he's healthy and on the defense side of the ball. But we'll see what happens with him over the summer, and if that back heals up and all this and that. But the Celtics are for real, bro.
And I believe you, and the only problem with the Celtics, before we move on here, the only problem with the Celtics is they are gearing themselves up probably for a matchup. It looks like it's probably going to be the Bucks, unless the Bucks falter. Looks like they're geared up to play against the Bucks, and I think the Bucks have a good chance of repeating this year.
That's going to be
that could be like a buzzsaw for the Celtics. It could really put a monkey wrench in things, but we can cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And before we get too far into this, we'll
talk about Minnesota, Memphis.
We'll swing back. Well, I think we swing back around to the NBA, get a little bit of draft coverage.
Okay, let's do that. Stay tuned. Stay with us. We're going to come back to the NBA, talk about all the rest of these series.
And I just wanted to come out of the gate here.
The sports court.
The draft is on Thursday. It's finally upon us. We've been waiting. I've been waiting so long for football season to kick back off. We're ready. Draft party is in full swing. We're getting started early. Pre-game's probably going to begin Wednesday.
Draft party's at Eddie's house.
And we're really excited. But it's right there at the top. The Jaguars are on the clock, and it seems like football.com and a couple other major media outlets is appearing that signing strongly to Trayvon Walker being the #1 overall. Greg, what do you think about that? Trayvon Walker, is that where you go if you were that to go?
Man, Or do
you believe they need some help on the offensive line to protect Trevor Lawrence, or should they go with who you believe defensive player in this draft in Aiden Hutchinson?
That's a very good question right there. I would Detroit hope that Aiden Hutchinson falls right there to them. And two, playing at the University of Michigan right there in Ann Arbor. I mean, that would be
Right,
so good for
the
functions if the Jaguars did not take Aiden Hutchinson. As far as Aiden Hutchinson, well, let me say this, as far as Aiden is concerned, playing at the University of Georgia specimen, I mean, you saw what he did at the Combine. He really put up some godly numbers. But I tell y'all like this, be careful now. Of course, he played on a great Georgia team, so he was able to get freed up a lot. How is he going to be being the guy that he only had 9 total sacks in his entire career? How is he going to be? Of course, we know he's a workout warrior. He looks the part, 275 pounds. Do y'all remember a guy from Ohio State by Vern Golston went to the Combine, toward the Combine, and led all categories for linebackers, either the leader or somewhere at the top as far as the 40-yard dash and the shuttles and the weightlifting and the broad jump and the vertical jump, and got to the Jets. I don't think he ever recorded 1 sack in 3 years before he was tossed from the league. So I can go on and on. Guys like Andre Bruce for the Falcons back in the day. I mean, we could talk about some notable busts. We could talk about some notable busts. Jamarcus Russell, Steve Edmond back in the day, defensive player who played for the Indianapolis Colts. So I'm not saying Trayvon Walker is going to be that, but of course the team, Jacksonville right now is intrigued. I'm sure they're intrigued with his upside and his physical attributes, but how can he really play when he's counted on to be the guy? You had big Jordan Davis on the inside taking some of the pressure off of you. You had that great defense that's probably going to have, 6, 7, 8 players drafted from the defense side of the ball to help you win a national championship. So right now he looks good on paper, but be careful if you're Jaguars. I hope it works out, but I think they're going to Trayvon Walker.
Well, I mean,
and I think what they should go with, I'll protect Trayvon, the big tackle from North Carolina State.
Ike
Ekwonu. Yep.
Greg, he says all that and he answers the question at the very end. I like the way you do that. The thing about Trayvon Walker, if you think about this Jacksonville Jaguars defense, you think about Mike Caldwell coming from Tampa Bay, coaching the linebackers. This is a guy who we know from what we've seen at Tampa, he can take athletic linebackers, make them integral parts of his defense. Now, we're not talking about a middle linebacker here, like they had Devin over there in Tampa Bay. We're not talking about that type of player for defense. But I doubt that Caldwell will be able to scheme up develop this Trayvon Walker into maybe what we all thought Jadeveon Clowney was going to become. A guy who's explosive off the edge. Doesn't have a problem getting home, who can get the sacks, who's gifted enough to do that. Also, you can do some other things. He's going to make those wild plays whenever he tips a screen up in the air and is able to intercept that, or whenever you drop him back into coverage and he has like a Von Miller type, a fit on your defense. Von Miller in the days would sink back coverage. Quarterback automatically assume that he's coming after them, and then the ball would find its way into his hand. He was real good at that. I can see Walker being used in that type of way, but just
he looks good on film.
Up a way to get him lanes to the quarterback, I think is what they're going to do best, and he has the athleticism and the bend to be able to, at the NFL level, when coached up well, when schemed up well, to be a dominant force coming off the edge. I could see why they would do this, but at the same time, for me, if I'm picking number 1 overall, I want to make sure that I'm picking a guy that I know is as close to a 100% sure thing as I can get. And for me, Trayvon Walker is not that guy. For me, it's probably Ekwonu or Evan Neal.
Or Evan Neal from Alabama.
Ekwonu gives you some versatility, but if you want to go with the guy who I think is the best pure left tackle in this draft, you draft Evan Neal, and you just keep on trucking along with your rebuild there in South Florida.
And he's played in the SEC. He played in the SEC, so he's played in the top level competition week in and week out. So he's ready for the task, a guy like Evan Neal. So you can't go wrong with either one of those guys at the top position. I think you keep Trevor Lawrence. And you have to remember, too, and I made this point a while back about when the Urban Meyer situation hit the fan and how before he got fired, how he had to be patient and let things play out and do things the right way and look at the big picture and things like that because you have, it's almost essentially like you have another first-round draft pick. Remember, Travis Etienne is coming back. A first-round draft pick last season, so that's going to add to your weaponry for the quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. And of course, now we're only talking about the first round right now. Of course, it's up to these teams to do their due diligence and really make sure they scout very well. And really, the draft is mostly made in the middle rounds. I mean, you can go back, look at the 1974 Pittsburgh Steelers, man.